Massive siege guns, devastating naval warfare, and the most explosive and empire-filled map of Europe you've ever seen. The dream of many a Total War fan is here, once again thanks to the humble, passionate, and dedicated modders of this community. However, not all mods are made equal, and as far as Napoleon mods go, first among equals is perhaps the Great War, which brings you the quintessential World War I Total War experience. If you want more World War I in your games, make sure to leave a comment with your thoughts, especially if you've tried the mod and want the real thing from Creative Assembly itself. Last time I covered the Great War was in December 2021, almost 4 years to the day if you can believe it, when I covered the 6.1 version of the mod. Today, update 6.3 is here, brought to you by the one and only legendary developer for this mod, B-Dizzle. So make sure to check out the Great War Discord server if you haven't already. This update brings so many immersive and historical features, like a new trade and military system for ports, entirely new immersive traits and military orders for faction leaders, massive changes to Italy's campaign, the Turkish War for Independence, new events and technologies, and so much more. But if you're unfamiliar with this mod, let me first tell you what it's all about, because this is massive. The Great War begins in July 1914 and opens with nothing less than the shots in Sarajevo, the assassination of Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand. This sets the stage for the mod as a whole, and as happened in history, the Great War between the Central Powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire on one side versus the Entente empires of Britain, France and Russia. Napoleon Total War was already a campaign filled with great powers, but Napoleon's map is arguably even more fitting for this World War I scenario. Because look at this. From the British Empire in the west to the Ottoman and Russian ones in the east, this is a Europe completely filled by the world's greatest powers. And the awesome thing? Essentially every single one of them is playable. In fact, you can play as minor factions too if you so wish, each with their own unique flavor, like historically accurate heads of state, government members, and their portraits. Of course, even though you can play as both the greats and the minors, the larger nations will offer you more unique content, like more unique units from all over your empire, unique events, unique scripts, and even unique missions. Play as Germany, for example, and you begin with a mission to take Brussels and Paris, simulating the German Schlieffen Plan and its violation of Belgian neutrality. The same goes for countries like Britain, France and Russia. So for Britain, the early game tasks you with blockading German and Ottoman ports. But new with the 6.3 update are the new mechanics for Italy and the Ottoman Empire. Due to how the Italian campaign used to be where you'd fight one central power at a time, it often made the campaign too easy. Now though, Italy begins the game in internal political crisis, and not as a part of the Central Powers. In order to keep things historical and immersive, Italy is in no shape to fight a war in 1914, having to deal with unrest in every single one of its major cities. You still get the mission to take Zagreb from Austria, of course, and you do begin neutral as Italy technically was. But if you know what's best for you, you'll try to keep the peace at home first, before you in May 1915 join the Entente powers through a script, cementing the war in Southern Europe, and forces you to deal with Austria, Germany, and the Ottoman Empire at the same time, alongside allies of your own, of course. As the Ottomans, the Turkish War of Independence is now portrayed in a few ways, not least of all with its own event in 1919. But now, multiple events in the Great War is symbolized by traits belonging to your faction leader. For the Ottomans, your Sultan will have various traits influencing the state of the country, the Turkish War of Independence being one of them. Once over and the government has been replaced, your new head of state will have Ataturk as a follower, symbolizing further the change of government. What's more, and a major addition, are scripted content for the post-war months and years. Thing is, many things in the Great War rely on events to keep it as close to historically accurate as possible, but ultimately, it's up to you how you deal with these events. At one point, there will be signed an armistice, signaling the end of the war. However, that does not mean the end of the game, because now we have a post-war campaign that continues until late June 1919, including events like the dissolution of the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Turkish War of Independence as mentioned, the Irish War of Independence, several revolutions and other wars, and so on and so forth. The awesome thing though is that an event such as the dissolution of the German Empire does not mean it will actually happen. You as the player can fight the revolutions and other movements, attempting to keep your empire intact despite liberal and national movements. This is what makes the Great War so unique. Contrary to so many mods and games out there, this campaign takes place in a matter of what essentially boils down to half a decade of history. And in order to keep things from completely derailing, powerful and immersive scripts attempt to keep things historical and remind you that this is indeed history you are partaking in. You of course get a hand and say in what happens, but you're also restricted by the goings-on around you. And that is an awesome way to create an immersive historical experience. For more immersion, most of the major factions now have their very own faction-specific events that only appear when you play as them, and they're combined with scripted events that affect gameplay. If you manage to outright win the war, the game now offers new victory screens as well as an extra reward for managing to win it. This update even sees the introduction of chemical warfare units, among them chlorine gas projectors, phosphine gas field guns, and mustard gas projectors, allowing you to do some truly horrible things on the battlefield. It's not pretty, but World War I is World War I, I guess, and for a reason. And of course, if you don't want to use them, you really don't have to. They have to be researched, of course, like any technology, and the tech tree has also been given an update to make it more in line with history. And certain techs are even faction-specific as well. For even more granularity, the mod has received an overhaul to the regional recruitment of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, showcasing just how ethnically diverse this empire really was, now offering unique rifle units from the Austrian Corps, Hungarian Lance, and Bosnian units in Croatia and Serbia. Researching foreign recruitment even unlocks Polish, Albanian, and Ukrainian units. With new tech, you can even research fighter and bomber aircraft as special agent units now, allowing you to potentially devastate enemy armies before battle. One of the major changes I personally love so much is the introduction of mixed ports for minor or mostly landlocked factions, in order to more accurately portray the capabilities of these nations. Factions with only one port, like Norway, would in the past have to choose between a military or commercial port, either hampering its trade significantly or crippling its ability to keep a forceful navy. The same would go for the Ottomans, for example, who only own one port. Now though, one-port nations or two-port nations, like in the case of Germany and Austria, now begin with a new mixed port type, allowing for both commercial enterprise and military buildup, and includes many more trade lanes per port. This is incredible because it opens up the opportunity to actually be a viable power and have fun options for expansion in the future. And because the game now actually reflects things like the potential power of Norway's merchant navy and the trading power of the Ottomans is now much more accurately portrayed thanks to this new special port. This is just part of what you can find in the 6.13 update for the Great War. A host of new events, immersive flavor, research and tech systems, agents, wars and scripts, and so much more. But you know what? One of my favorite things about this mod is just how much it manages to convey the naval combat of the era, at least aesthetically. Despite not having completely new ship models that look exactly like World War I ships, enough has been done to make these once Napoleonic ships immersive and feeling like they're actually new. Gone are the sails and the wood, replaced now by steam, steel, and extremely long-range cannons that fire rapidly and violently. Everything from the flags on the rear and top masts to the new sounds brings this naval experience so much closer and separates it clearly from its Napoleonic counterpart. The same goes of course for the land battles, which are symbolized by massive infantry charges, rapid-fire guns, and an iconic reliance on long-range cannons and artillery. For what this game was supposed to be originally, the mod does a fantastic job of changing up the scenery, and even though it is Napoleon beneath it all, it does truly feel different, and as if you're fighting on a completely different scale, with different weapons and in a different time period than before. The Great War for Napoleon Total War is out today, is so full of content, offers so many different immersive factions, new models for academics, trade ships, warships and even planes, new events and unique mechanics, that it's incredible that it's even possible. The mod has never been better, and whether you're managing your empire on the campaign map, taking the battle to the high seas to protect your global trade lanes, or pushing the front lines on the field of battle, you're going to love your time here. Let me know what you think of the Great War in the comments, and make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!